one of the biggest things I hear is like people say, "Oh, I'm just getting bored." Like getting bored doing the same movements, and I hear that and I get it because I was the same way. I was like, man, I'm getting bored doing this. But like literally, what really made things happen was sitting here doing the same shit, the same movements for 10 damn years, like still squatting, still doing the same movements for this many years.
I'm like sweating a little at my response. And if you've seen me behind the camera right now, I'm like, whoo. My answer truly, and again, this may or may not apply to you, but if you are offended by this, then like, let's take some time to also marinate and ask if this is true for us. If you are seeking novelty and fun in your exercise and your training 24/7, 365, and you are that person that you're always chasing the shiny object, the new, that I get bored easily, do you do fun things in your free time? And what are you doing in your free time that isn't the gym? And here's why. If you are somebody that, hey, you go to work, you go to the gym, and then you go hiking, you go surfing, you go outside and you're wake surfing, you're skateboarding, I'm like listing all of like my hobbies, right? But it's like most people would be like, oh, like I stand up paddleboard, I go trail running, all of that stuff. I have a question. Like I said, if we're seeking that novelty and it has to be like 100% in our training and fitness, do you actually have hobbies, and what things do you do for fun?
Mm-hmm.
Because my guess is that if you're somebody that you are living a really big life and you have sports and hobbies and other things, and you also train and you also eat well, it's like it all goes hand in hand. Where, like I said, it's like if you were somebody that you just go to work, you go to the gym, and that's the end of your day, we need hobbies because again, it's like, I think that's going to fulfill some of that like novelty and fun quota. And don't get me wrong. It's like programming can be fun or it can be sucky. Like I've followed other bodybuilding programs that was like, man, this is like watching paint dry on the wall. Like this is still a little bit too much for me. Right. But it's like, you also have to find programming that encompasses movements and things that you like. So like somebody, for example, in our Paragon Facebook group, she was like, hey, I'm coming from a CrossFit background. I'm thinking about following the Strength Metcom program. But I know that, Brian Borstein that programs for us, he actually has his own program and it's very machine and cable heavy. Like it doesn't encompass dumbbells. It doesn't encompass barbells. And so she was like, yeah, I think I want to like follow his program. And I was like, sister, I'm gonna paint this real clear. Like you are going to be bored to tears if you're looking for, again, it's like if you're coming from CrossFit, you probably want something that's kind of more high intensity, that is fast and encompasses all the things that you love doing. Like I think you're going to be bored to tears if you go follow this thing, right? So it's like, I think just making sure that the training you're doing lines up with things that you enjoy. Like if you don't enjoy running, probably don't do a program that encompasses a lot of like cardio and conditioning and stuff like that, right? It's like, how do we have equal parts in our training that's like what we need, which is progressive overload, a program that increases in difficulty over time. It's structured, it's periodized. Like again, we cycle through hypertrophy, we cycle through metabolic conditioning cycles, we cycle through strength. It's like, it's periodized. There's a plan for the entire year, but equal parts, like where's the fun quota? Because again, it's like, if you're doing something you fucking hate, well, you're probably not going to stick with it and you're not going to do it. And if you asked me to go to a CrossFit class, I'd be like, politely, no. Like I don't have space for that, right? Like,
yeah, I mean,
beyond those days.
And I think too, something, I mean, at least what I've done, at least personally, is just like, if I wanted to do something, I would just kind of add a little bit of it in. But like, what's your goal, right? Like if you have a certain goal that you want to achieve, like your actions and how you train need to line up with that. And I think it's totally fine. Like if you want to do a bunch of different stuff all the time, go do it. But like recognize that, hey, like if you're then not seeing the result or some kind of result that you're aiming for, and it requires you to be a little bit more focused and intentional about your training, then you have to be okay with that, or look at the fact that like, hey, like maybe I do need to, sit here and do this training program more consistently and give it some time.
Right. Well, and it's like, there can be seasons of life that you just YOLO your fitness, or it's like, if you're feeling super burnout, that's probably what you need to do, is just literally go like do the shit you enjoy, do random workouts. But it's like, that's the toughie we always run into with when we talk about modalities like CrossFit, is it's like, CrossFit's fucking great. Like there are tons of gyms that run great programs, but equal parts, CrossFit is kind of this big overarching theme of like, well, you might go to a gym that doesn't have good programming, that doesn't prioritize rest days. You might go to a gym that like the more is better mentality is like the sauce at that gym, right? So it's like, if you're following CrossFit programming, that's okay. But again, it's like I've also been on the receiving end of I've gone to gyms where the programming, it's like, hey, we do have training cycles. It's very intentional. There were different training cycles and
Mhm.
different goals and stuff like that. And so it's like, it's being very clear about like, hey, we don't have to be 100%. Like if you're like, yo, I just want to look better, I want to lose weight. Well, yeah, like you don't have to be 100% dialed in. It doesn't have to be sucky and boring. But it's like, how do you find that balance of like, I'm in alignment with whatever my goal is, but equal parts, I'm
Yeah.
enjoying myself along the way. It's like you got to find that happy medium of like, okay, we do we do have to be dialed in. We
Yeah.
can't just be willy
Yeah.
nilly about our training, but equal parts. Like how do you find that give and take? And I think it's also just like giving grace isn't quite the right term, but it's like it's being okay with understanding we don't need to be type A, and like the more tightly we're like, oh, I'm focusing on this goal, well, that can get a little messy too. So it's like, what I'm thinking about specifically is in our Facebook group, somebody was like, hey, I'm thinking about swapping out this movement. Like, is it going to make me make less progress or less gains? And it's like, yo, at the end of the day, just like do the work, right? It really is just like consistently do the work. If you have to swap out a movement that's, maybe not the most ideal that it could be, that's not even the right word, because again, it's just like when we're talking about training is actually very forgiving. Like we just have to put in the reps and we have to put in the work, and our body doesn't know if we don't perfectly follow the programming. Our body literally knows the stimulus it receives, right? So it's like, how do we, again, it's like this messy middle of how do you shake out to like, I'm doing training that supports my goal. The equal parts I'm having fun. The equal parts, it's like there has to be some monotony in there. Like we
Yeah.
can't, again, it's like we go back to finances. Well, however much effort we put into it is also like how much we get out of it. So it's hard because as people, we want it all and we want it all at once. And that's just not how it works.
I think a key thing with that is just taking data, right? Like just seeing truly like are you progressing the way that you want to progress, right? Because if you are, what you're doing is fine, right? But if you're not, that should be a sign that hey, like what about what I'm doing is not aligned with my goals. And if you can, if you're not progressing in your training, you're not getting stronger, you're not putting on muscle or anything like that, but you're sitting here like changing all the things all the time, then maybe that's your sign to be like, hey, like let's buckle down and focus on one aspect and get really good at it or make some progress here. And then obviously test, right? Like if you do that and you have the data to support that, then that just shows like, hey, like I need to do some aspect of this. And then maybe you say, well, okay, well, I also need to enjoy my training. So what can I get away with, right? And then again, it's just looking at that data and constantly evaluating like, is what I'm doing supporting my long-term goals?